What's it been like seeing the reactions to the show then? Have people come up to you and been like, "Oh my God, you work on Chimp Crazy"?
Well, no one comes up to me because nobody knows who I am or what I
Yes.
look like. But I have been getting a lot of emails and text messages from friends and old colleagues that I haven't heard from in a while, and that's like always a good sign that like think something is out there like working in the national conversation when just like people hit you up, even strangers. Like I got an email the other day from an editor that was just like, "Oh, I love your show. It's so good. It's inspiring." And like I'm having a really hard time like cutting my first feature right now, and I'm like, well, I'm looking to Chimp Crazy for inspiration, so thank you. And it's like that's the coolest thing that can happen. It's like it's so touching.
That's amazing. How did this project come to you? Like, were you, yeah, how did you meet Eric Good along the way, or yeah, how did that all happen?
It came to me because I have been working with HBO a lot the last few years, and I was finishing a show with them called The Anarchists. This was in like the summer of 2022. And then I call up HBO and I said, "Hey, I'm going to wrap in a couple weeks. Like, what else? What else you got?" And they connected me with Jeremy McBride, who is Eric's number two at Good Films. And we were talking about a show that they were doing for HBO, and we both kind of we had a great conversation, and we both kind of agreed like, this might not be the right fit. So it was like, okay, well, that's a bummer. I'll see you on the next one. And right as we were getting off the phone, Jeremy said, "Hey, let me send you something. Take a look at it, and I'm going to call you tomorrow." And then he sent me the sizzle for Chimp Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, and as soon as I saw it, I thought, well, this is going to be the most interesting story I've ever told. I would love to work on this. And then, yeah, we talked the next day, and then that was it.
Wow, and it seems like I know you worked on the Into the Storm, the Into the Q store, or
Yeah.
and like so it seems to be like you're interested in these. Are you interested in like subcultures and
Oh,
uh,
totally.
yeah.
Like weird stories have found their way to me in my career, and I've always just kind of said yes because I think the weird story is the more fun story to tell. It's like a more interesting thing to watch, and like I think a good documentary takes you somewhere that you can't go or teaches you something about something you didn't know. And the weirder the story, the less accessible it is to most people. And if you can get good access in a strange, bizarre story, like that's a great recipe for a good documentary.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So you worked with, I guess, basically two directors because you've got Eric and then you've got the proxy director,
Yeah, yeah.
Dwayne. What was that like? And I keep even having to remind myself when I'm watching it sometimes, like, oh, we've got like lots of things going on here.
Well, I didn't meet Dwayne until the premiere, and I
Really?
didn't talk. I don't think I talked to Dwayne. I might have been on a Zoom call with him once or twice. Um, but yeah, Dwayne didn't have much to do with post, but I mean, Dwayne was very instrumental in the field,
Yeah.
and so it wasn't like a push and pull between two different directors. It wasn't like that. And then yeah, I didn't have a ton of contact with Dwayne, but he's like a gem of a human. Like he's the nicest guy. I really like him. My girlfriend's a stand-up comedian, and he's coming to her taping next week. Like
Oh my
so,
gosh.
I'm like stoked to hang out with Dwayne again, and he's really great.
Oh, that's awesome. Was there like an original kind of story that Eric wanted to tell that changed over the course of the filming? Like, I guess I'm wondering, when did you realize? Because I didn't realize it was only going to focus on Tanya. I guess I feel like that first episode's kind of like, here's this culture, and then it
Yeah.
kind of zooms in. And I was wondering if that is something that happened for you in the editing process.
Well, it happened kind of. Yeah, it kind of happened in shooting too, because like sort of the good films method of production is like you find an interesting subculture scenario or place, and you put yourself in it, and you wait till something happens, because and then if it does, you get Chimp Crazy, and if it doesn't, then you never heard about it. So they started. I know Eric was like really into capuchin monkey moms, because and capuchins are kind of like the gateway into chimpanzees anyway. So he got interested in that, and then he realized, oh, chimpanzees is kind of like the next level. And then they were looking for someone who had a chimp, and they found Pam Rosaire, who was like the first person you meet in episode one after the cold open with the 2001 Space Odyssey scene and all that. And then Pam sort of cued them into Connie, and then they found Connie. And when you research Connie, you realize what a big impact she's had in like American chimpanzee life. And then they tried to get access to Connie, and she didn't want to talk. And then Tanya was, at the facility working, and then the rest is kind of history.
Wow.
And
So
then
it is kind of like, yeah, what we were seeing is kind of how you were like finding the story.
yeah, that's how it really happened. It was
Wow.
like that part of the story is like very linear, and that was like the journey that Eric went through on production kind of mirrored. It was the perfect way to tell the story. It's just like, let's just, this is how it went. Let's do it that way.
Wow. How soon then were you mentioned that you like saw the sizzle reel, like how soon did you start working on like editing and kind of helping shape it?
I started in July of 2022, which was, spoiler alerts for this whole conversation, which was a month after Tonka was removed from Tanya's basement.
Okay.
So a
Wow.
large portion of the story had already unfolded by the time I started.
Wow.
Yeah. They had
Well,
already
so
filmed with Pam, and they had already filmed with the Buck Pendleton story. And we went back and filmed more with Pam. And then we sort of started pursuing the Travis story after I came on.
yeah, those stories were so, oh God, like I think I was hugging my dog in like episode 2 because I'm just
Yeah.
like, I don't know. There's just something about I didn't realize how much like. First of all, I was thinking about how they call people crazy cat ladies, but I'm like nobody ever says crazy chimpanzee ladies, which I'm all against any kind of crazy lady talk anyway. But like this is this is a real thing. Like but then you see that like they want these, it's almost like they're babies that don't grow up. They like them because
Mhm.
they stay kids, which I found so
sense, yeah.
fascinating. I wanted to ask about the
But, like,
music.
so
I know that you're not a music supervisor or anything, but like I was wondering if you were editing to certain songs because I know some editors will like have songs in mind
Oh,
where they
yeah. I
and
mean,
I loved Linger and Nina Simone. I thought those were so great, and I was wondering if you like how that kind of came together.
well, we didn't have a music supervisor, and really the editing team just like put in songs that we thought worked. And
Yeah,
honestly, that's something that we always do in every show, but it's really rare that you get to keep them. So like I
yeah,
put in the James Brown song for the confiscation in episode 1, thinking this is the perfect song. I love this. We're never gonna get it because no one, I mean, it's expensive. That's like a $45,000 song.
wow,
and
yeah.
and nobody ever wants to pay that, but it worked so well, and the team was just like, yeah, we have to get it. And that it kind of worked like that throughout the whole series. Like, yeah, the James Brown song I put in, the in the second episode, the Henry Nielsen needle drop was Chuck Divac, who edited episode 2. The Devo song at the end of episode 2 I put in because I was listening to a lot of Devo at the time, and I love Mark Mothersbaugh. Adrian Gitz put in the who edited episode 3. She did the Boy George cover by Violent Femmes at the end of episode 3. Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, which is like so tongue in cheek and perfect.
Yeah.
Doug Abel, who cut episode 4, put in Nina Simone. Before it was Nina Simone, I had put in like the Sugar Sugar by the, I forget who wrote it. It's like from the 60s.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The Archies?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was too campy, and then Doug switched it, and it was like so much better.
I
So
love
yeah,
that.
and Linger was Jeremy McBride, the EP. We had tried a bunch of things for that scene. Like originally I had put in oh man, Give It to Me Baby by
I think I know what you're talking about.
Rick
Is it?
James.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that was like when we just had it slated, and then when we shot the recrease for that scene, it was like, oh, these feel really different. That's wrong. And then I tried it with Hotel California, a song about addiction by the Eagles, which was amazing and slower. And then we couldn't get it. Like they wouldn't even talk to us, I think. And then
Wow.
Jeremy's like, oh, just try Linger by the Cranberries. And I was like, okay, let's see. And we dropped it in. And I was like, oh, this is perfect.
Oh, I love that so much. That's so great.
It
That's
was
great that
it's
you got
really
to use.
fun.
Yeah. I wanted to ask too about that. There's that poignant moment at the end where like Tanya is in the car, like singing to herself, which I think is an important moment in the film. And I was wondering, like, was there any debate about cutting that or keeping it, or what did you think? Like, yeah,
Well, I agree. It's a super poignant moment. And
yeah.
it's one of my most favorite moments in the show. And I remember when that footage came back, and I think it was Chuck Divac who cut episode 2. He had watched that, and he called me and he said, hey, there's this moment where Tanya's singing in the car. I don't know what it means. I don't know what we can use it for, but it's really powerful. And we have to remember that this exists. So I wrote it down, and I had like I have a sheet that I create where just like things that you should not forget. You might not have to use them, but you need to remember that they're there, and try them somewhere. And then by the time we got to episode 4 and Tanya's life is kind of coming apart a little bit, we realize, oh, this is like a perfect place for that emotional moment. And the song is also about addiction. And it's a song that she put on herself, by the way. We were just
Right.
filming with her in the car, and we were just like, not asking questions, just having like a quiet moment in the car.
Yeah.
And she put on the radio, and it's a song that she likes, and she just started singing, and our DP just let it roll. And it's really beautiful. I mean, I get goosebumps still every time I watch it.
Yeah, I was thinking about too, and the final episode really like shifts in this tone toward empathy for her. Like, she's seen as this like quirky character, and you're almost like a villain at times, but by the end of it, you're like, oh, this person really loves Tonka, really loves this animal. And I was wondering if that was like a big discussion about that shift in tone.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most important things that we talked about with Tanya's story is that like it's really easy. It would be really easy to villainize her, and that's like the low hanging fruit.
Yeah,
But she's a real person, and you might not agree with the choices that she makes, but I really believe that she truly loves these chimps, and she thinks that she's doing the best thing for them. And I I don't agree with what she's doing, and I don't think most people do, but like I think in her heart, I think her heart is true, if that makes sense. And we really
yeah,
wanted to show that because it's important, and we wanted to be fair to her in that sense that like, hey, the loss that she's experiencing after Tonka is taken from her is like real loss, and to her that's like losing a child. And if that happened to anyone else and it was a human, you'd have so much empathy for that
right.
person. And I don't think that you should just turn that off because it's a chimpanzee and he was held in what are not ideal conditions. Like we really really wanted to humanize her, and like those emotions are really relatable, and we felt that was important, that the audience would still like her. And one of the most important moments in the film for me, and it was really important that we included this, was the interview with Cheyenne Roundtree, the journalist from Rolling Stone, when she said,
Yeah,
I really like Tanya,
yeah.
and she's telling me, I forget the exact line, but she's telling me, et cetera, and I really believed her. And then I saw a picture of her in the basement, and I wanted to understand why couldn't she see what everyone else sees. And that line was so important to include because I wanted to give the audience permission to feel that way about Tanya. It's like, there's a lot of facets to her, and you should look at them all. And
Yeah.
Cheyenne sort of highlighted this human one, and I really really wanted to make sure that came through.
That is so interesting. I really like that moment too. And you make a good point too about how, if this were a person or a child, we would be like so empathetic and sympathetic to her. Even if this were a puppy, like a dog or a cat,
Yeah,
I feel like we'd be. It's because it's so weird that there's this weird kind of
I mean, there's
like
not a lot of daylight between how Tanya treats her chimps and how some people view their pets.
right.
People dress
Yeah.
their pets up in goofy clothes and kiss them on the mouth and sleep with them
Yeah.
in bed and do all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's the scale changes when it's a chimpanzee, but there's like a baseline human, uh something human in between those two things, where it's like there's a little bit of Tanya in anyone who owns a pet, and like she's an extreme version of that, but like there are similarities there.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you feel like you kind of like you're very you paint PETA as like the hero because they are the hero in a lot of ways. But did you in some ways not want to be did you want to look at them in a lens the way Tanya was looking at them too? Because I feel like even at the end when they're like slapping high fives and it's almost kind of like, oh, but you're this woman, you took away her like pet. I don't know. Like even though she shouldn't have Tonka. But was
Right.
that kind of a fine line that you were thinking about too?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to treat PETA the same way we treated Tanya, which is like, we show them warts and all. Like a lot of people have strong opinions about PETA,
Yeah.
and some people think they go too far. Some people think that they're heroes. We didn't try to paint them as heroes. I mean, I think that they looked that way because ultimately they did a good thing in this
Yeah.
situation. And we had a lot of conversations about like, okay, well, did PETA go too far? It's like because the chimps were out, the chimps were safe, the chimps were living a better life, and then they started coming after Tanya and to try
Yeah.
to recoup their legal fees. And I mean, I understand why they're doing that. It's leverage to negotiate with her to get her out of the animal business. But like, if their goal was to save the chimps, they did that. Did
Right.
you need to keep doing this? And they would say yes. Many people would agree with them. Some people wouldn't. And we wanted to allow people to have that conversation to say, she's a person too, just like everybody else. Maybe take it easy,
Yeah.
or maybe don't. So you can make up your own mind. But yeah, we definitely wanted to show all facets of PETA. I mean, including like the montage that introduces PETA in episode 1, like where we show their like very over the top campaign tactics. It's like some of those are ridiculous, and but they're also very effective. So we want to make sure that people understand everything they could about PETA.
Yeah, by the end of the whole series, I felt like I got both sides and really felt like it was just it really all uh it just kind of blossoms in that final episodes where you're like seeing that like a full like it's a great series the whole way through, but that ending was just, you really kind of see both sides and kind of see this multifaceted story, which I really loved. So, yeah. Great. This has been such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
I love talking
I
about
keep
this.
going if you want. I got time. It's like I love talking about Chimp Crazy. So if you got to go, that's fine. But
No, you've like answered all my questions unless there's anything you want to mention or anything.
um, hmm, what do I want to mention? Yeah, I think people there's I've seen a lot of comments out there about like people like, oh, I don't want to watch this. This is too dark. This is too scary. Animal abuse, etc. But like, give it a shot because it's ultimately it has a happy ending. Takes its time to get there, but we get there. And I think there's a lot of like there's just a lot of nuance in the show that I think people can enjoy, and I hope people don't get turned off by the weird animal stuff in the beginning because it's really a lot deeper than that. And yeah, it's just I hope everybody can watch it.
That's so true. It blew my mind. Like I said, it's one of those things where like I had no idea that like why people like had chimps, like this subculture of women especially. It's just fascinating, and I think you guys really present it in a respectable way and like in an honest way too. So yeah,
Thank you.
I hope
We
that
tried really hard to do that.
yeah, it's great. I love it so much. So I've been telling everybody about it.
Oh yeah, keep
Yeah,
keep telling them. Tell
I'll keep
everybody.
it going. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, for
This has
sure.
been so much fun.